Welcome to South Africa's biggest financial drama of the year, where the numbers don't add up, the coalition doesn't agree, and the biggest budget speech gets yanked at the last minute, like a panicking student who has just realized that the exam is to be written in an hour and hasn't even opened the textbook. Grab your popcorn because this one is a thriller. It was supposed to be a routine budget day. The finance minister was set to unveil South Africa's grand financial master plan, but just as he was about to take the stage, boom! The announcements dropped like the last-minute plot twist in a telenovela. Budget speech postponed. Gasp, shock, markets tumble. The rand plunges like a soccer player faking an injury. Investors panic, Twitter explodes, and suddenly we are all left hanging like the bird season finale. The parliament did not take it well, it erupts like a volcano. Let us watch the following video clip for more context.
May we be seated? Honorable members, can I start the meeting before we... No, honorable member, we will allow you to speak. So can I conduct the session? There's what? What is the emergency about? Where are the mics? Order. Can we please get a roving mic?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes.
There are no mics here where we are.
Exactly, I'm seeing
and
that
we can't
too.
start a sitting without having mics because we are here to be the voice of the voiceless. So when the voice of the voiceless is voiceless, who's going to speak for people? There are no mics here.
Thank you, Honorable Member, for pointing that one out. One may not know what is the challenge. We will check that with the communications team. Order. Honorable members, for now, since there are no mics that are connected, which unfortunately had not been brought to our attention, we will try and utilize the roving mic when necessary. I have just had a consultation with all the whips of parties following a consultation with the leader of the government business. In terms of Rule 48, subsection 2, we have decided to adjourn proceedings for a date to be determined by the programming committee. This is in accordance with Rule 10. Honorable members, before we started the session, we were informed by the leader of government business, as it is the process in terms of the communications between ourselves and the executive, that while today we've been gathered here to actually have the Minister of Finance presenting the budget to this august House, that there has not been agreement in terms of parties in the executive to actually find one another in proposals of the budget. And the executive therefore decided, as some of you already know, and as your whips have said in our discussion, some things that have already been on the media about where there are possible increases and where different parties as well as members of the communities' perspective on those proposed increase were saying. And Cabinet therefore decided not to come and do a presentation of the budget and allow themselves enough time to re-look at the budget and come back to this House in March at the time at which they will inform us. So, no, honorable members, I will point you, I have noted your hands. Well, in our consultations, which I must report to you, the different whips shared with us their perspectives on the matter. There were those who agreed and asked that we ask the executive to give us a definite time in March so that we are able to deal with the pressures of time for the legislature. Secondly, there were those who were saying they are not accepting the postponement. But obviously, we did indicate that while we note their refusal on the postponement of the sitting, it would not be of any use to postpone when there is no presentation that will be made. There were others who already declared their rejection on what they say it's an alleged increase of 2% on the taxes, so they said they wanted to state it up front that they are not agreeing. So I'm just giving you a perspective of the consultations that we've had. But there was agreement that if there is no budget that is presented, there is no discussion that will be held, as there is no other item on the agenda. Honorable members, we have two hands of members who would like to reflect, and I will give each party to make their reflections. It's something that is unprecedented, but I do think it is correct that when such situations happen, we need to collectively think on the best way forward. And I guess it was correct that we are informed, even though late, that this is the situation. I will now recognize Honorable Malema, followed by Honorable Manye. I don't see the hand at the back. You are recognized, Honorable Member.
Thank you very much, Speaker. We must all know that this is unprecedented, and this is not a practice that we want to set for this Parliament. It is going to be your legacy, Speaker, that during your tenure, Parliament could not debate and adopt budget. We are saying to you, you are denying this body an opportunity to be receiving a budget, debate it, accept it, or reject it. You are now subjecting the budget of South Africa to party politics when the budget is supposed to be above party politics. Let the budget be presented here and let Parliament decide that this is the decision that we are taking as Parliament, or whether to accept or not. You cannot come here and say confidently that the parties in the executive are not agreeing. What is that? We don't have parties in the executive. We've got the executive. The executive must come here and present the budget, and this Parliament must decide whether we adopt that budget or not. You are denying the people of South Africa to see what is happening in this government. There is no government. It has collapsed. It has no capacity to present a budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have noted your view. Honorable Malema.
Thank you, Speaker. Now, for us, this day is actually quite a shocker. We are really shocked. This is in the past 30 years, to have a day like this is a serious indication of the crisis that this country is facing. This country has got no leadership. This is what we are facing. We are saying, if we say we have democracy, let democracy come and exercise itself here. This is the theater of politics. Let the Minister of Finance come and say whatever he wanted to say. We don't want to hear rumors. We hear very disturbing rumors that the VAT would have been increased by 2%. In other words, we hear rumors that this ANC-led government wanted to impoverish our people.
Okay,
we have no sympathy with that. The minister must come here and say what he wanted to say, and then we'll deal with it here.
Thank you. Honorable.
Where was this discussion held? Why was the UDM not part of that discussion? As a result, we cannot support a decision that we know absolutely nothing about. Secondly, we should not treat a proposal from the executive in the nature of a budget as fait accompli. It is only final after Parliament has approved it. It is therefore logical, if the minister was going to table a proposal, that the proposal should have been tabled here for Parliament to consider, and if Parliament does not agree with that process, we can arrive at a different outcome altogether. Thank you.
Thank you. On the issue of your consultation, Honourable Member, I'm sure you will be clarified because all the whips were asked to have and have consultations here. Honourable Manye.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker and Honourable Members. Today does mark a historic day. What I do believe is absolutely important is that what we do in this House is guided by legislation. And therefore, the Money Bills and Related Matters Act does compel us as to a particular timeline as to when the budget is going to be tabled, what committees are meant to process it, and how that goes. I want to appeal to you as the Speaker. Firstly, we have raised continuously in this House through the Appropriations Committee about how truncated the time is for the processing of the budget. So any natural delay that emerges as a function of today does in fact mean that Parliament is placed under pressure in not being also being able to consult with the people, for this is where the people are represented. So may I ask that it must not be an arbitrary decision as to when this must be tabled. We must be given a firm date so that we can work the timetable consistent with law. Otherwise, the disagreement that took place today will end up in the court of law, and we as Parliament will be held accountable for that. So let me propose that we get a firm date. We also get the tabling, as the President has promised, of the medium-term plan that he announced, so that we have a framework within which to interpret the budget from. So, Speaker, let us stick to our own laws. Otherwise, we will be inconsistent with that, and the people of South Africa will hold us accountable for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honourable Ganga.
Speaker, it's quite clear that Parliament is becoming a laughing stock. The GNU is becoming a laughing stock. The GNU is anti-poor, the GNU is anti-growth.
Order, can we please listen to the Speaker on the podium?
And it's an absolute disgrace. Our country is battling with economic growth. When the market sees what's happening with us, it's an absolute joke. And one of the reasons why they can't make a decision is because it's such a bloated cabinet. And the poorest of the poor are paying for a bloated cabinet. There are deputy ministers here that don't even know what they do. We don't know what they do. And we are paying for it, and it is unacceptable, and they should all hang their heads in shame. It is a disgrace.
Thank you. Honourable Michalakis.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, contrary to what some of the opposition parties have said, what is happening here today is actually showing two factors that should create immense confidence in what is happening in this country. The first is that Parliament is not a laughing stock, but that Parliament is no longer a rubber stamp to bad policies that will cripple our economy. And the second message that should go out to the markets and to the people of South Africa, Madam Speaker, is that the GNU does not consist only of one political party. Madam Speaker, therefore, the DA supports this postponement, and we hope that the executive will use this opportunity and this time to consider all the proposals on the table, especially the DA ones, so that when we hear a budget that gets put before this House, that it will be a budget of growth that will put our economy on the path of recovery and that will create jobs for the people of South Africa that they so desperately need. Madam Speaker, if that is the result, then the DA is absolutely willing to wait for a short while to hear a pro-growth budget. And therefore, we will support this postponement, but with a clear message to the executive, and particularly to our partners in the GNU, that you are not alone in the GNU, that we have an equal say, and that we will continue to fight for every single person in this country, most particularly the poor. We support this postponement.
Al-Jama, Advocate Salim.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and to all members. As Al-Jama, we are going to support the postponement, and I'm going to tell you why. Firstly, the first concern that we brought to fore is the fact that we knew that there were problems even before today. Why wasn't a postponement done sooner than us having to sit in this House? That's the first thing. The second thing is, if you go and look at the markets, dear members, it is already impacted by this budget speech, which is not happening. And also because of our politicking. Who is going to be impacted? The nation. So Al-Jama will support the postponement. Why? Because if it is the interest of our nation that they won't be impacted, that is why we will support the budget, the postponement. However, Madam Speaker, all of the chief whips unanimously noted we need a date for this postponement because it has a rippling effect on the rest of the budgets. So we cannot come here today and just say there's going to be postponement in March. The request was, give us a definite date of postponement. I thank you.
But for now, let me allow Honorable Zungula.
Thank you, Speaker. We need to ask you, Speaker, who decides? Because if you are going to allow the chief whips to decide for the entire parliament, it is problematic. Secondly, you cannot allow a case of the incompetence of the executive, even at the incompetence of parliament. The executive did not know yesterday that there's going to be a budget today and there's no agreement in the so-called GNU. Therefore, the executive, the Minister of Finance, must come here, present what he has, and let us, as the people, as the representatives of the people, decide for the people. This notion, Speaker, of saying want to assure the markets and all of these things, it is problematic. This House does not belong to the markets. It belongs to the people. We are the representatives of the people. Massive Minister of Finance presenting what he has. And then the parties here can be seen whether they are in support or they are not in support. Do not deny the parties an opportunity of standing and clearly showing where they stand. And also an indefinite postponement is not going to be acceptable. Because if let us wait for an indefinite postponement, what does that mean? And what happens if after that indefinite postponement, they come back again and then let's postpone again? We're going to have more and more postponements. Makaze apa, sizele lonto apa.
Order, honorable members.
They are my friends.
Order.
Don't worry.
Honorable member, you can proceed.
Speaker, what I have seen the
Honorable
past...
members. Honorable members. Honorable members of the EFF at the back. Order. Honorable Pambo, can you please speak to the members at the back of the EFF? Honorable Mackenzie, can you proceed?
All right. Speaker, what I have seen the past 2 weeks, I want to tell the people of South Africa that I have seen humbleness, humility, and people that listen to each other. I want to congratulate the Minister of Finance. You came to present a budget which the DA, the PA, and the different parties didn't fully agree with. But the ANC were humble enough and say, let us hear you. What is it you don't like here? For 2 weeks we've been busy. We are seized with the last issue. A wise man changes his mind. We are united. This is not a one-party state. We are together, united, all of us that you see here. These ones, they will not know. They are a government in waiting. We are the government. The government is taking charge. Amen.
Order, honorable members.
To know more about this story, stay tuned. Welcome back to the Fraud News channel. I'm your host, Boss Robert. Thank you to those who have liked our videos, subscribed to our channel, and have left comments on our videos. We appreciate you very much. But to those who have not yet subscribed to the channel, please show your brother some love by clicking the subscribe button now. Thank you for doing that, and back to the story. If South Africa's Government of National Unity GNU were a reality show, it would be called Survivor Treasury Island, where alliances shift, betrayals happen, and no one knows who's actually in charge. The drama started when the ANC, with all the confidence of a gambler betting on a bad hand, proposed a 2% VAT hike from 15% to 17% to fill in a 19.3 billion hole in the budget. But their coalition partners, led by the Democratic Alliance DA, said nope, not on our watch. The DA, smelling political blood in the water, pounds on the VAT increase like a cat on a laser pointer. Their leader, John Steenhuisen, declared victory for the people and celebrated like they would have won the Rugby World Cup. Meanwhile, ANC ministers were left scrambling, looking at each other like, wait, we needed their votes. Awkward. Awkward indeed. However, some argue that the victory may be short-lived, as DA is alleged to have leaked privileged information to the media in order to gain political clout above other members of the GNU. In view of this, some of the members of the GNU have expressed their dissatisfaction on Twitter or X and in some media houses. Let us watch the following video just for context.
The GNU parties, in the way that Mr. Hanif Hendricks has just been speaking about them, and saying then ultimately that on the day of is when other political parties are then told of certain elements of this, and then they break what is supposed to be known as protocol ultimately by letting people know, or if that happened to be the case anyway, right? This is all supposition in fact as well. But we knew this before the speech was even put out. Is that a problem in itself? Is that the breaking of ranks? Should we be worried more about that than the actual figure itself? Because I would think that the figure does matter, but this other element also is important. What do you think?
We indeed must be worried. I agree with Brad and Charles, and to a greater extent also with Mr. Hendricks. But I think it was Brad who underlined a particular point I would like to return to. But in this instance, there was a violation of the law by people who claim to be upholding the law. I will take you back to when the Guptas will meet with someone, let's say Fikile Mbalula, then to tell him that he was going to be appointed the minister. I am mentioning this because it was at the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture. What you have seen here is a political party called the DA violating cabinet secrecy. In other words, violating the law, seeking to undermine all other parties to elevate itself, even ahead of the budget being unveiled. The president and law enforcement agencies have to deal with that. There is another problem. There is another problem though. The budget, if you read news outlets like the Bloomberg and others, there is a circle in the National Treasury that supplies budget information to the media and gives them privileges, whether embargoed or otherwise. that thing violates the law because it does not give all of us an opportunity to reflect at the same time. That's why when the minister finishes speaking, when they have written reports because they have received the budget in advance, all they do on their computers is to press enter for their stories to go. Practices like these ones have to come to an end. If I may come to another angle, which is not part of your questions, the SACP is in alliance with the ANC and COSATU. There is a problem there. You cannot have the type of consultation we have read in the media between the ANC or the Minister of Finance with the DA, and there has been no consultation within our alliance. That is a problem. Now, when you look at the responses of these political parties, starting with the DA, which seem to have been relied upon on the basis that if it brings its 21%, there is 60%, and could undermine minority parties in the government, that DA proved to be unreliable to a policy agenda that the ANC thought they will be with it. By the way, the DA is going to be caught with serious surprises.
Sure.
Its macroeconomic policies, if I may conclude the point, its macroeconomic policies and budget expectations are anti-workers. And what it has tried to do is to elevate the point that we ourselves and other political parties have elevated on the VAT. While behind they are driving a serious anti-worker agenda, they have unleashed a machinery against themselves, which they are about to see in the coming weeks.
I hear your point. Charles, let me get you very quickly. We have to go to an ad break, but I want to get your thoughts just very overall. Just the sentiment being laid, it's unfair, but we'll try to get the DA to also respond to all of this because they do have a right of reply to this. But what is your thoughts with regards to the breaking of certain protocol, the element of this was only supposed to be known when the budget was actually proposed by the finance minister? That not ultimately being the case here, where does it leave us?
Look, I don't know if anyone knows for sure who was the leak or if we're just speculating here. But I do know I was previously a journalist that the concept of confidential information leaking isn't something that started now in the GNU. We've seen this over the years, even when there was just one party in charge. So as much as, yes, it's a very sanctionable offense to not keep your top secret information top secret. We have seen this before, and it's going to require more discipline from the parties. I can assure you there was no one in the PA that did it, because we do take the vows of office very seriously. Every minister that put their hand on the Bible or took a oath of affirmation promised to keep the secrets of the state secret. So that's something that they're going to have to look deep inside to deal with. And it's not a joke. You know, we are running Africa's largest economy here. Just put forward. I mean, there is an embargo.
Just before you go there, I want to highlight something, Charles. Please look into this.
Very quickly, Alex. We've got 30 seconds.
Just quickly. It is unprecedented that we hear about who said what in the cabinet. So just converse with the leader of your party, Charles, because if you look at his tweet, he really explains who spoke first in the cabinet, followed by who. He did it so well because he was engaging with the DA, which was out of order, trying to throw all other parties under the bus. But it is misconduct what he did, because you never do that.
Okay, we're gonna get into the weeds of it a little bit further.
Many people who had access to what was in that budget speech. But the leaking is not really, I think, the main issue here. There was speculation before the leak that there was going to be a proposal to increase VAT. What is really the issue is that the government of national unity is a new way of governing. And what we've seen is National Treasury conducting themselves as if it's business as usual. And to attempt to brief party leaders who make up the government of national unity on the morning of the day of the budget, so at 7:30 this morning, the party leaders were briefed on what was going to be in that budget. When there are 10 parties in the government of national unity, it's just no longer going to work. So National Treasury, the Minister of Finance, the Finance Department, they need to understand that it's not business as usual. And this crisis that we've created could have been avoided if there was consultation earlier, with enough time to make the call that this budget was not ready to be presented to the people of South Africa and tabled in Parliament.
I think that they will find a solution. I mean, this will be a fascinating moment to see how this plays out. I'm not going to second guess it. I also just felt that I needed to respond to what Dr. Sheila was saying, that I mean, maybe it's misconduct for Gayton to set the record straight, but when there's such a big lie being told, and the DA knows that they're going to benefit by everybody else being well behaved, the only option there is to tell the truth. You know, when such a big lie is being peddled, then you must resort to the truth. And I do believe that nobody would have taken issue with how he represented them. And I think it's a strange situation that required a strange response, right? But that's not going to be the behavior. And if everybody respects each other and the confidentiality, then this will never happen, right? So we back what he did, and we believe that he has the backing of cabinet to have brought the truth to light.
Yeah.
So that was important. And, you know, to answer your question, we believe there will be a solution, and it cannot be 17% VAT. I mean, that's just unfortunately going to hit the poor and the middle class.
So where's the money going to come from?
Well, I think that it's actually shocking that we just keep trying to milk the population, right? Where is the discussion around where we're going to start cutting costs, right? And as the PA, we believe strongly that that government needs to facilitate more and be less active in the running of the country and leave it to the people to start running the country. So we need to start taking lessons from countries that have actually turned inflation around through cutting the cost of government, because our government is becoming an extremely costly exercise.
You're going to get the SACP riled up on this one. And I knew Alex was going to come in. I knew it. Alex, Brett had something to say initially first. Let me go to him first, if you don't mind, Alex, because Brett, initially you had also disagreed just a little bit with what Mr. Hendricks had been pointing out, but just your response overall.
Yeah, thank you. I do want to differ slightly from Mr. Hendricks with the notion or the idea that the budget is the Minister of Finance's delegation and the President extended a courtesy to party leaders when the budget was shared with the party leaders who make up the government of national unity. There's a saying that you can tell a government's priorities by their budget. And we have a coalition government now, which is governed by a statement of intent, which sets out the priorities for this coalition government and what it will achieve over the next 5 years. And so that budget that was going to be presented today had to really be informed by the statement of intent that the 10 parties agreed to, the priorities that are in that statement of intent. And so there was a duty on the Minister of Finance and the President to consult with the parties that make up the government of national unity before that budget was presented. So that's where I wanted to differ with Mr. Hendricks. I don't accept that it's the Minister of Finance's prerogative to present and table a budget. And I don't think that he regards it as his prerogative, which is why he did brief party leaders this morning, but clearly too late in order for us to avoid what happened today.
Yeah, just yesterday on the show, we had a discussion around communication of this budget and how consultation actually happens and how critical it actually is at advancing the entire mechanism of this budget. Alex, I know you've got a heavy response here. Let's talk about that. I also have a question for you as well shortly after that.
Okay, no, I quite like the way Charles handled the question. Look, Minister McKenzie came out forthright to expose the DA's lies because the DA was lying. They were the only ones who said 1, 2, 3. And what Minister McKenzie did was to show a list of several ANC ministers in the cabinet who spoke against the BAT. I'm saying even if I personally liked that, you never do it because cabinet discussions are top secret. In fact, there is no need for us to be beating about the bush about where the leakages came from. The DA was the first party in the government that went out through a statement rejecting, showing that there was consultation with it and then it differs. And then it became a lead about the so-called speculations in the media about an increase in VAT and so on. But let me come to the way forward. The Commissioner of SARS, in a seminar, indicated this week that there is an estimated 800 billion rand of uncollected tax from individuals and businesses. Now, listen to the amount that is mentioned to be a shortfall. That amount is far below 800 million rand. If you could, so 800 billion rand. So if you collect the 800 billion rand annually, which is not collected, you pay for the shortfall and you have a surplus from the 800 billion of about 500 billion rand that you can use to finance other priorities. It was completely unnecessary to hike VAT instead of enhancing the capacity of SARS to collect and if you look at the class, there are class divisions here. There is, if you read the news report, the Minister of Finance says we cannot touch big business. In other words, we must not touch rich people. We must touch the poor people by increasing VAT. I mean, people, 12.5 million who are unemployed, active and discouraged work seekers, over 6 million workers in low-wage employment, 17 million beneficiaries of social grants. I can tell you the moment you increase the value-added tax, they no longer have access to the same basket of goods and services that they had before. So you are attacking the workers and poor by saying we must not touch the rich who can afford everything for themselves. That is nonsensical.
Yeah, I completely hear what you're saying. I'm going to ask for final comments, gentlemen, if I may, in just a moment. Before I do that, Alex, I'm going to give you a very short while if you can. But I need you to respond perhaps to me if you can, as an alliance partner, to the conversations that were heard on that hot mic between Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana as well as Minister Khumbudzo Netshiweni, just around Edward Kieswetter. Are you aware of any kind of conversation or disgruntlement between the two, and what is the issue at play, if you know anything?
Look, I referred to a seminar where Edward Kieswetter made a point that there is 800 billion in uncollected tax from individuals and businesses. And if you can follow there is no need to increase the VAT. He is absolutely correct. That information is from the core of our tax collection authorities. Other than that, there is nothing I am aware about. So I know that our leaders sometimes are victims of open mics, but those mics gave us access to what they have had to say. It is important we go deeper to understand that. But insofar as he said, it is unnecessary to increase VAT while there is 800 billion rand uncollected in taxes from individuals and businesses. I mean, he is right.
Yeah,
he is right, and that is the solution that finances the entire shortfall and caters for other priorities. Is that not so?
Yeah, true. So, of course, that conversation was had with the minister in the presidency there, Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, being had just after we had that press conference a little bit earlier.
Some of you may still be wondering, why postpone? What is the big deal about this? In order to shed light on this matter, let us watch the following video from the Minister of Finance elaborating the issues that led to the postponement of the budget speech. Let's watch the following video.
Was the 2% the normal contention?
The only.
Huh?
Was the 2% the only contention?
Yeah, contentious issue. You can't have the 2% alone without talking about what's going to replace it, and that does not become contentious. What I'm trying to say, what we are grappling with, is not necessarily the 2% per se. What we are grappling with, given the challenges and priorities that we are facing, how do we fund them? Really, that's the debate. Do we borrow more? What are the implications of that? Do we continue cutting expenditure? What are the implications of that? Do we raise tax? What are the implications of that? There's general agreement that in the current environment, we need to find a way of funding our priorities. The debate is what is the best way of doing it? And give the bonds to Duncan and give the minister the remaining one. Bond.
Thanks, Minister.
We don't talk to board holders, you guys talk to them.
Yes. Thank you, Minister. So typically what would have happened today, what typically would have happened is that we would have had a global investor call after the budget with our domestic and foreign investors. And then there would have been some engagement over the next few days, mainly with the domestic investors, followed by a foreign roadshow. Of course, if the budget has been postponed to the 12th of March, all of those engagements will now shift until after and on the 12th of March, as per our normal practice. We will, of course, consider releasing a statement more broadly after this. But some of the key areas of communication that would have already gone out to some of our bondholders around, for example, what would happen to auction levels, that communication has already gone out, and that communication is important to go out. So there are some areas of communication that have already happened, and it's important that that goes out. In terms of the broader fiscal framework, there will have to be a re-engagement on the 12th of March when the new fiscal framework is tabled.
On the question of the DA having released a statement claiming that they forced the ANC hand, I think all of you followed Minister Mackenzie when he was replying in Parliament. And in his reply, I think he succinctly clarified it was neither a DA issue, an ANC issue, a PA issue, or a DA versus ANC, or a PA versus ANC, or IFP versus ANC. It was a cabinet decision. And let me clarify, in cabinet we have a sitting order. So the older ministers sit first. So it means when you are raising hands, it will be the ANC ministers who will raise their hands and speak first. And the focus of the discussion is not about party politics. It's about what is the balance that we need to achieve between managing our fiscal framework, managing our ability to protect the interest of South Africans in general and the poor at outmost. How do we deal with the inequality that confronts all of us? So it's never a GA ANC issue. It's a collective cabinet decision. And the minister, you raised the question of why did the minister take a risk? And he has explained, he didn't take a risk. Ordinarily we do it that way, to manage the market sensitivity. So it's not something new. Before he goes to the MTDPS, he's going to come on that morning and give us the issues. But there are continuous consultations that happen. But bottom line, at the end of the day, Treasury must balance the books, must make sure there's money that's available, and in balancing the books, they'll then have to say, in terms of what Cabinet has proposed in the previous engagement, what does the reality say? And then the minister has covered what the issues to say. How do you then plug the gap that we have in the fiscals? Do we borrow more? Do we do? What are the other things that we do?
With no agreement in sight, the budget was pushed to 12 March 2025, and South Africa's finances are now running on fumes. The rand, already fragile, took a nosedive, looking like an Olympic diver who forgot to straighten up before hitting the water. The investors who don't like uncertainty started side-eyeing South Africa like a sketchy Tinder date. The country is in a financial pickle, debt through the roof, revenue looking about as strong as a house on cards in a windstorm, expenditure ballooning like a Black Friday shopping spree. And now, without that VAT hike, the government has to figure out how to plug the massive revenue gap without making citizens even more broke. If the 2% VAT increase had gone through, the average Joe, our tin swallow, would have felt it instantly. It's like waking up to find that every one of your monthly expenses has been ambushed and drenched in a fresh layer of financial agony. Here is how. Groceries, more expensive. That monthly bread, milk and maize meal bill just got a little heavier. Electricity. Escom might still be unreliable, but your prepaid electricity would drain faster than your patience during load shedding. Transport, whether you are filling up your tank or catching a taxi, is going to cost more to get anywhere. Airtime and data. Yep. Even staying connected to rant about the VAT hike on social media will cost you extra. Basically, if VAT increases, everything goes up, except for salaries. And that's the problem. The cost of living is already off the charts, and to add a VAT increase would have been a financial equivalent of adding more weight to an already sinking ship. The DA knew this, that's why they went all out to block it. Some may assume. But others are saying it was everyone who contributed to rejecting that VAT increase. But let's see how it goes. Let me know what you think about this in the comment. As if domestic chaos wasn't enough, South Africa is also bankrolling military operation in the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC. The irony, the government is struggling to keep the lights on at home, but there's some more money to send troops across borders. Somebody make it make sense. Oh, let us not forget about the international drama. USAID funding is on the chopping block, which means crucial development programs could take a hit. And South Africa's grey listing by the Financial Action Task Force, FATF, means doing business internationally is now as complicated as trying to explain the rules of cricket to an American. So, you may be wondering, how does the government fix this disaster without hiking VAT or selling union building on Facebook Marketplace? Here are some genius ideas. Number 1, public-private partnerships. Let the private sector do what the government can't, because let's be honest, they probably do it better. Some may argue we are selling things to the white man, but it's a solution anyhow. Number 2, sell some state-owned enterprises. Escom, anyone? Transnet, anyone? Going once, going twice? Some may suggest as a solution. Number 3, cut government waste. Maybe fewer fancy ministerial cars and more public service delivery. Just a thought. I wonder if the politicians will take this one. Number 4, crack down on tax evasion. Looking at you, billionaires with offshore accounts. We are coming for you. Number 5, increased investor confidence. Step 1, stop the drama. Step 2, see step 1. My final thoughts on this matter. The 12 March 2025 budget speech is now shaping up to be a blockbuster event. The kind that could either stabilize the economy or turn into an even bigger disaster. The GNU needs to pull itself together. South Africans need relief and the Rand needs CPR. So, will this coalition find a way forward? Or are we in for more twists, turns and parliamentary tantrums? Please share your comments and concerns in the comment section below. I'll be happy to hear from you. Thank you for watching. See you on the next video. God bless you.